Israel invaded Lebanon, and Iran reacted by sending missiles to Israel. The escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, fueled by regional power struggles and foreign influence, is drawing attention to the broader ramifications for the Middle East. The latest conflict between Hezbollah and Israel is part of a long-standing rivalry dating back to the early 1980s, following Israel's invasion of Lebanon. Hezbollah, an Iranian-backed militant group, was formed to resist Israeli influence in Lebanon, and over the years, this conflict has flared repeatedly, most notably during the 2006 war. In recent weeks, tensions have risen dramatically. Hezbollah forces have engaged Israeli troops along the southern Lebanese border, leading to heavy casualties on both sides. Hezbollah's leader, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed after the Israeli attacks. Israeli forces have launched a ground invasion aimed at targeting Hezbollah strongholds in southern Lebanon, calling it a defensive measure to prevent further missile strikes. Iran's involvement in the Israeli-Hezbollah conflict is undeniable. As the primary backer of Hezbollah, Iran provides financial support, military training, and advanced weaponry, including the missiles that have targeted northern Israel. On October 1, 2024, Iran escalated the situation by launching a barrage of missile strikes at Israeli cities, a response to what Tehran saw as Israeli aggression in Lebanon and Gaza. Iran framed these strikes as retaliation for Israel's assassination of top Hezbollah figures, including Hassan Nasrallah. The Israeli government, which views Iran as its foremost adversary in the region, has vowed swift and severe retaliation for the Iranian missile attacks.
من البته در زمینه مسائل لبنان و اونچه که مربوط به این شهید بزرگ و عزیز هست عرایزی دارم که در آینده نزدیک انشالله اونها رو خواهم گفت.
This conflict is not limited to the borders of Israel and Lebanon. The exchange of fire between Israeli forces and Hezbollah has drawn Lebanon into the wider chaos, with over 1 million Lebanese displaced by the fighting. The Lebanese government, already weakened by years of political instability and economic collapse, has struggled to provide for its people as Israeli airstrikes target Hezbollah positions near civilian areas. The Lebanese army has been largely sidelined in this conflict, unable to prevent the deepening humanitarian crisis. Thousands of civilians have fled northward to escape the violence, creating new waves of refugees in a country already grappling with the aftermath of the Syrian civil war. The Israeli government is firm in its stance that any attacks from Hezbollah, Hamas, or Iranian-backed forces will be met with overwhelming force. Following Iran's missile strikes, Israel has intensified its military operations in both Gaza and Lebanon, while also launching airstrikes deep into Iranian territory. These strikes have targeted critical infrastructure and military installations, with significant civilian casualties. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has warned that these actions are necessary to secure Israel's borders and prevent further destabilization. Yet, as both sides escalate their attacks, the risk of this conflict spiraling into a full-scale regional war involving other actors such as Syria, Iraq, continues to grow. While Hezbollah remains a formidable force in Lebanon, its capacity to wage a sustained conflict against Israel is limited. The group is heavily reliant on Iranian support for weapons and logistics, and as Iran faces its own economic struggles and international sanctions, Hezbollah's ability to maintain long-term military operations could be compromised. Furthermore, Hezbollah's tactics, including the use of missile strikes on Israeli civilian areas, have drawn international condemnation. Even within Lebanon, there is growing concern that Hezbollah's actions are bringing further destruction to the country, making it harder for the group to maintain its political influence at home. One critical aspect of this conflict is the broader use of proxy warfare, where regional powers like Iran and Saudi Arabia exert influence through local militias and groups. Iran's backing of Hezbollah and Hamas in their fight against Israel highlights its strategy of indirect engagement, avoiding direct military confrontation while destabilizing its adversaries. This tactic, seen across multiple Middle Eastern conflicts, allows Iran to maintain leverage over its enemies while limiting the immediate blowback on its own territory. Meanwhile, Israel's strategy involves targeting these proxies to weaken Iran's regional power. The continual back and forth between these groups in Lebanon and Gaza reflects the wider proxy struggle between Tehran and Tel Aviv. Saudi Arabia and the Gulf nations are watching closely, with growing concern that Iran's increasing boldness could further destabilize the region, drawing more countries into the conflict. The international community has expressed alarm over the rapid escalation of violence between Israel, Hezbollah, and Iran. The United States has voiced strong support for Israel's right to defend itself, sending additional military aid and warning Iran of further sanctions. However, many European and Arab nations have called for immediate ceasefires, fearing that a prolonged conflict could destabilize the entire region. The United Nations has attempted to mediate peace talks between the warring parties, but so far, these efforts have been unsuccessful. As both sides dig in, the prospects for a negotiated settlement seem distant. Despite the mounting violence, there remains a glimmer of hope for a diplomatic resolution, though the path is fraught with challenges. However, trust between the parties is low, and any lasting peace agreement would require addressing deep-rooted issues, such as border disputes, the disarmament of Hezbollah, and Iran's regional ambitions. The involvement of international powers, particularly the U.S. and Russia, could either facilitate peace or further complicate the conflict, depending on how these negotiations evolve. As the conflict continues, the consequences for the Middle East and beyond are profound. Lebanon, already on the brink of collapse, could face a humanitarian disaster if the fighting worsens. Iran's involvement heightens the risk of drawing other regional powers, like Saudi Arabia and Turkey, into the fray, leading to a wider regional conflict. Israel faces the difficult task of neutralizing Hezbollah without becoming bogged down in another protracted war in Lebanon. The world watches anxiously, as any miscalculation could trigger a chain reaction, engulfing not just the immediate combatants, but potentially the entire region. The Israeli-Hezbollah conflict, complicated by Iran's involvement, is more than just another chapter in a long-running rivalry. It is a flashpoint with the potential to ignite a far larger and deadlier war across the Middle East. The humanitarian toll is already immense, and unless a diplomatic solution can be found soon, the situation could worsen dramatically.